over a few housekeeping points. We have a poll. As I've mentioned in the intro, we would like you to complete the poll so that we can discuss the results of the survey at the end of the presentation. If you have a question to pose to either the host, yours truly, or our featured speaker, please do so in the questions and answers section. If you have a comment to make, please do so in the chat section. We'd like to keep the Q&A and the chat separate so that we can answer the questions and then address the chat comments. If you have a technical support issue, please put your comment in the chat and we will see if we can address it during the presentation. All datamanagementu.com webinars are live streamed on YouTube. Please subscribe to EWSolutions channel and you'll have access to all our webinars. The presentation for today is available in our webinar section on the website. Please feel free to download it and follow along. If you attend the entire session, you will receive a certificate that entitles you to 1 professional development unit. The certificates will be mailed within about a week after the webinar. Today's webinar is about a very interesting topic. They're all interesting, but this is really interesting because most times we don't talk about these. We're talking about return on investment, a business case, and a charter. These are all essential points for a successful data governance program. What do we hope that you learn from today's session? 1, the value of a data governance charter. 2, how to identify a return on investment for data governance. Absolutely important when you're trying to convince executives to support a data governance program. And finally, the importance of a business case to sponsor an effective data governance program. Our featured speaker will have an interactive demonstration with the ROI business case and charter components. We'll talk about the poll results and address the questions and answers that we can in the time we have available. Then we'll have a conclusion. I'd like to introduce today's featured speaker, David Marco. David's the president of EWSolutions, who is the sponsor for this webinar. Most people know David because he is one of the world's foremost authorities on metadata management, data governance, and enterprise data management in general. Without further ado, I'd like to turn this over to David and thank him for today's presentation. David, it's all yours.
Why, thank you, Anne-Marie. I appreciate it. What we're going to do is quickly, Anne-Marie is going to stop sharing and I am going to share my desktop with everybody here. So let me go here. Okay, and we're going to go full screen. Go. It'll take one moment here and then let me do one other thing. All right, how is that looking? I hope everybody can see my screen well.
Oh, it looks great. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, and one of the things I want to bring up, Anne-Marie, before I dive into the presentation is our poll. First off, really interesting results. I'm not surprised to see with 29%, the top driver for our attendees data governance program is improved decisions with trusted data. And you see right with it at 27% is enabling data science, big data, and advanced analytics. I think those two almost work hand in hand. A little surprised that regulatory and risk management didn't jump into those top two. I would also, and I enjoy the people, the 8% of the honest folks says, what driver? I'm lucky they let me attend the webinar. By the way, you can always tell which questions I write. That was one I wrote. I would like to also ask that for the 9% of people who answered other reason, can you put that in the chat, please? Because we're interested in those. It's our job as data governance professionals to make sure we're on top of everything. So with that being said, I'm going to end the poll and let us move on. Here, let me share the results. And let me move on. So what are we here to talk about today? The Data Governance Program Charter and how to define return on investment. This is all part of our webinar series called Data Governance Mastery. We are going to take at least a year and maybe two, just plowing through data governance best practices, really digging in deep into the nuts and bolts of how you do this. So before we get started, I really want to send a thank you to our strategic partner, IIM, the Institute of Information Management out of Africa, but really it's a little bit of a misnomer because they're all over the world. Fantastic organization. If you are a data governance or data management professional, I would strongly encourage you to go to the iimafrica.org website and join up. It's a wonderful group of professionals, and we're thrilled to have that partnership with them. All right, EWSolutions Background. We have built over 100 data governance programs we've been a part of. We've won basically every award you can win in our industry. So when I give a webinar, I'm trying to give you the best practices. What does it take to actually be successful? And that's the whole point of data governance mastery. Also, here's my profile. I will not bore you with reading this, other than please go to LinkedIn and follow me there. I post articles on data governance, videos on data governance. If you have a question on your data governance program, I included my email here. Who the heck does that? So please feel free, send me whatever questions you might have. Okay.
David?
Yes. You have a question?
No, I don't have a question. I have a comment.
Oh, do you need my email address?
No, not today.
Oh,
maybe tomorrow.
okay.
I don't. What I'd like to do is mention the fact that on LinkedIn, attendees can follow datamanagementu.com, our page there.
Yep. And
our sponsors page, EWSolutions.
Yep. Absolutely. And I strongly encourage you to do it. What we're going to talk about today, data governance return on investment, or ROI. We're going to look at the current IT landscape. We're going to look a little bit at data governance regulations and some of the regulatory issues impacting us. And then let's talk a little bit big data, data science, advanced analytics. I'm going to wrap it up with a data governance charter. We've included at the end, so there are so many things I want to talk about with return on investment. Unfortunately, more than I can cover in the course of this presentation. So I've also included an appendix of some other data governance metrics. If you go to Data Management U to our webinar page, you can actually go there and download this presentation, and you'll get the metrics as well. And it's just a free, easy download. You click on it. I think the download just starts. Oh, and we are streaming live in YouTube. So if you listen to this and you say, gosh, I missed that one part that David was speaking about, you could go to YouTube and watch it all over again. I actually hear that our webinars are a cure for insomnia. So that could be.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. It works for you?
Oh, yes.
So that could also be a great use of it. So, all right, let's look. Enough of the comedy routine for me. Let's look at the data governance return on investment. So first off, building a sound enterprise data governance program is a directive at many organizations. Back in the 90s and early 2000s, when we were working on data governance programs, it was so difficult to get companies moving forward on them. Now, what we see, companies realize they have to have these programs to be successful. They just have to, because there's many things driving them, which I will get to today. Because data governance profession is important. And as professionals, we have to understand why the enterprise data governance program is needed. If we don't understand why it's needed, it's going to be difficult to help our organization move forward. So let me continue. So my first question, and this is going to be a participation question coming up, is what do our current systems look like? Many of us have worked with IT systems for a long time. And my question is, what do our systems look like? So let's take a look at just one process. And this is taken from a client partner of ours. At the time when they built this, they were Fortune 14 in the entire world, huge. And what we did was we wanted to track one single process. This process is called customer. And when we looked at their environment, these are all the places customer was located. I mean, could you imagine trying to manage and operate an environment like this? Horrendously complex and extremely difficult. I remember one of our client partners, huge automotive company, probably many of you own a car from them. And I remember speaking with one of their executives, and he said, if we ever had to change the VIN number, that's the number used to uniquely identify a car. If we ever had to do that, he said, we wouldn't be done by the time my children retire. Why? Because their environment's so complex. Now, I bet some of you are hearing this and you're looking at this chart and saying, well, come on. You took a Fortune 14 company and you pick something like customer. Of course, that's going to look awfully complex. You know, real life isn't this bad. Well, let me ask a different question or make a different assertion. Let's just take a look at IT system flows and maybe select a mid-sized company, possibly insurance. And let me tell you, I think their systems would look like this. Oop. I have a question for you. This just a mid-sized insurance company, not even looking at all their systems, just decision support. And I have a question for our audience. Maybe Anne-Marie, you could tell me what people are saying. What problems, if any, exist in this kind of architecture? What do you see?
Actually, I think that's a great question to pose, David. Can people answer in the chat?
Yep. Oh, thank you,
What
Anne-Marie.
they see as a problem. Just one problem with what David's displaying on the screen as islands of data.
Maybe there aren't any problems, Anne-Marie.
Okay, actually somebody just wrote anarchy. I love that word. Thank you.
Anarchy.
Stability, process overlaps. Thank you very much, everyone. Keep them coming. What other problems do you think they get? Confusion, absolutely. Too many moving pieces.
All right.
Inefficient, lack of accountability, very good point. Disarray, chaos. And the answers keep coming. And the fact that it's costly, yes. Shadow IT growing up, yes. Pandemonium. David, you want me to keep going or shall you continue?
I think I would like to continue. I think that's an outstanding group. So one of the people mentioned process redundancy. My goodness, I don't even think I need to address that. We could just look at it and see that. Somebody also talked, I think, about data redundancy. Tremendous levels of redundancy. I love anarchy. Whoever said that, you get my post of the day, because I find that hysterical, because it is anarchy.
It's true.
Well, Anne-Marie, it is true. This is what we see in the real world. When we go work at a client partner, this is the norm. This is simple. Somebody said too many moving pieces. And the term and the quote that I like the best, costly. This is extremely costly. I have one more question to put in the chat. How many of you think I made this up?
Anybody think that David made this up?
Anybody? Do we have anyone?
This is real world. It happens everywhere. Nope, not made up. Not possibly made up. Looks like one of our processes.
Yes.
Seen firms with this? Oh, I doubt it. I've seen this movie.
I've seen this movie.
You didn't make it up. I've seen it.
These are, so everybody who is commenting now, you are outstanding data management professionals. This, of course, I didn't make this up. Do you know why? I have a life. I'm not sitting around drawing lines for no reason. This is pulled from a client partner. And we had the task of re-engineering this whole thing. So I could give you some statistics on this. So when you look, this is only decision support. There is a ton of stuff happening to the left of this chart. What we see here is there are 8 independent data marts. And if you're able to read these, you could see this is certainly insurance. 8 independent data marts. When we re-engineered it, took out all the redundancy, we came up with only 2 data marts. We almost could have done this whole thing in one. If it wasn't for the darn actuaries, we had this thing in one data mart.
I remember this.
Yes. You know, if you've ever worked with actuaries, you know they're very finicky. Their emotions get easily upset. So we had to give them their data mart. Anyway, you look at it, what a problem. In this environment, 5-fold needless data redundancy. Data just redundant for the sake of being redundant. Just like people said, anarchy, confusion, too many moving pieces. If you fix one thing on the left, you break 10 other things to the right. A classic problem that we see all the time and very costly. One thing, I don't know if anybody mentioned this, what about redundant technology? When they built the 8 independent data marts, did they all use the same database platform? Certainly not. 3 different ones. I think it was DB2, SQL Server, and Sybase, if memory serves. When we re-engineered it, did we use 3? Of course not. That would be terrible consulting. We used 1. And that limits the number of DBAs you need. It limits the number of staff you need. It really reduces the complexity. This is the norm in the real world. I love asking the question of how many of you think this looks like your environment? When I do this live, all the hands go up saying, yes, how'd you get a copy of our IT environment? And for a big company, this is simplified. Your life is much more difficult. This type of world is one of the reasons data governance exists. This is the mess that we are dealing with. So let me continue. Thank you. Phenomenal comments from our group. We have a smart group today, Anne-Marie.
Looks like it, David. I keep getting even better comments.
Almost all large organizations have these challenges. It's one of the great kind of inside consulting jokes is sometimes you'll meet with a company for the first time and they'll say, oh gosh, David, our IT environment, it's a mess. We have so much redundancy. We change something here, we break so many other things. Our data quality is terrible. And then they'll ask, have you ever seen a company like this? Yeah, I think I have. So it's typical. We deal with this all the time. And it's a challenge. This is why when you look at major enterprise IT projects, they fail at a rate between 35 and 60%, depending on how you want to measure failure, because the environments are too convoluted. There's a mess and we really don't understand them. And the reason why this happened is this last bullet here. Most companies never planned their IT enterprise. It just grew over time. That's why data management exists. Our job is to clean up this mess. And boy, do we have a big job in front of us. So this is the real world. This is what we deal with. Now let's look more at data governance and some more ROI. So what's the cost of this redundancy? I'm going to show you a client partner. I don't want to name them because these numbers are big. Large healthcare insurance company. Their IT budget at the time when we were working with them, 1.6 billion US dollars with a B. Huge organization. Today, they'd be well over 2 billion. They estimate that it costs them $2 a month to store each gigabyte of data. That number goes up to $8 a month when you add in services and maintenance, the people part. Well, they estimate that they have 1.6 petabytes of redundant data. What does that cost them a year? Well, simple math and a good calculator will tell you $153,600,000 per year just to store and maintain all this redundant data. Now, question for all of you, this is a big number. And we look at it, we could say, wow, that would cost justify a data management program. But I have a little bit of a challenge for you. When you see this number, is there a larger cost sitting out there in our companies? Larger than this $153 million number for this redundancy? There is, though the number is harder to quantify. And that is that people are using this data today. The 1.6 petabytes of redundant data are going on to analyst reports. People are making live business decisions with redundant, inaccurate, and misunderstood data. And I can assure you, the cost of that eclipses $153 million a year. Now, can you really quantify that? It's difficult, but I assure you it's larger than just the physical storage costs. I see this with our client partners. Anne-Marie, we have a client partner today. They can't do the most basic reporting. What is a product and how many are we selling?
Yes.
Just the most basic. And that's something that should not be. It shows a real issue in the way the systems are being built. And that's what we need to change as data management professionals.
It shows a lack of all the aspects of data management, not just data governance, but starting with data governance. It shows an inattention to data quality, shows an inattention to metadata management. You might have heard of metadata management.
I vaguely recall the topic.
And it shows an inattention to the need for architecture and integration. All of those are parts of enterprise data management as much as data governance is.
Well, and how about an enterprise data strategy, Anne-Marie?
Oh, yes.
And how, I mean, just, let's explain how sausage is made. When we work with client partners, it's pretty rare that we walk in and they say, oh, here's our enterprise data strategy.
No, they usually look and say, we have a business strategy. Mm-hmm. Is that the same thing?
No, it should feed your data strategy, but it's not the same thing. So, Anne-Marie, just to your point, it is such a significant issue in our industry, and it's up to us. You'd mentioned that this is all of data management. If you're on this webinar, unless you're a family member of ours, you're probably a data management professional. And if you are, it's our job to change the thinking in our companies, to get them to realize this type of environment, this type of architecture, it's no excuse and it has to change. All right. Anne-Marie, Anne-Marie did not know what the next slide was going to be, but she brought up data quality. And it was a perfect lead-in for the 110-100 data quality rule. And this rule was originally created in 1992 by Leibovitz and Chang. And in my experience, to me, this is a wonderful rule. So let me explain it to you. If we have a defect, think data quality problem. If we fix that problem at its source, let's suppose it costs $1 to fix at its source. Now, we all know it never costs $1. It will be in the thousands, tens of thousands, but for simplicity's sake, let's say it costs $1. If we don't fix it at its source and we let that data quality error, that defect get into our company, get into our system, that $1 cost goes up to $10. If we allow that defect, that data quality issue to persist and go outside of our doors to our customers, the $1 that just became 10, now the cost to fix it will be $100. Not only are we talking the cost to fix it, but the erosion in our brand name and with our customers too. So when sometimes people will say, well, Gosh, if we fix our source systems, that'll cost $1 million. If you don't, you're going to have $100 million of impact to your company. And the rule of thumb here is when we have data quality issues, we need to go back to the source. We need to fix them there. It's critical. We're talking about client partners. We have another client partner. They have a very significant web presence. They sell fantastic merchandise on the web. They have some, I do not even want to say how their website is built, but needless to say, lots of defects are going out. Because of those defects, it is eroding their customer base. And they hear about it all the time. A great example of the 1-10-100 rule. So what I want you to take away from here, when we have a problem, when there's a defect, we have to fix it at its source. We cannot let it permeate our systems. Go back to the source, fix it there. Okay, let me keep going because I have so much more to talk about. And I'm going too slow, Anne-Marie. Regulation. Regulation, but we had so many good questions and comments. I enjoyed them. Regulations driving data governance. I was a little surprised in our poll that regulations were third. They were a strong third. I didn't know they would get the bronze medal. I thought they would either get the silver or the gold medal, but regulations are driving data governance. And one of the key ones is GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation. This is a regulation in the European Union on data protection and privacy. And if you look at it, this regulation has teeth in it, and the teeth are sharp and they are long. If you're found in violation of GDPR, the fines can be as much as 5% of not net, gross revenues. Gross. Think about that. If you are a $100 billion firm, meaning your revenues that you bring in are $100 billion. First, congratulations, that's awfully large. But number two, you can be penalized as much as $5 billion. So even if your profit is only $100 million, they go off of gross. So this has teeth. And if you don't believe me, ask Google, because in January of last year, they got hit with a pretty big fine from the France data protection regulator called CNIL. And they issued a over $56 million US fine because Google failed to comply with GDPR. So, and I will tell you, I know we have a lot of people who do business in the United States here, a lot of people from the United States in on this webinar. It's only a matter of time before GDPR comes to the United States. It's just a matter of time. In fact, I am shocked we don't have a GDPR equivalent already coming from the federal government. Because one thing's for certain, we definitely have one coming from a state, but we'll get to that in a minute. All right, the next two pieces of legislation I want to get into are KYC, and no, KYC does not involve fried chicken. This is different. This is, Anne-Marie almost fell over at that joke. I could, the reaction was priceless. The other one is AML. So what is KYC? Know your customer. And both of these regulations really came about from 9/11. They're really counterterrorism, money laundering related regulations, and they hit banking quite a bit. So KYC is a guideline for financial services organizations that we need to be able to properly and accurately identify who's a customer, are they suitable to be a customer, and what are the risks involved with maintaining a relationship with them. The second is AML, anti-money laundering. And these are all around money laundering, which you see from criminal type organizations. These two blocks of regulations work together. And what I find interesting is since 2008, about a 10-year period, so I think this survey that I saw went from 2008 to 2018, there has been over $26 billion in fines related to KYC and AML. the government giving most of this fines are the ones in the country we're at, the United States, giving 91% of them. So my goodness, these are fines we want to avoid, and they're all data related. Next, but not least, the California Consumer Privacy Act, CCPA. And this has, in a way, become the de facto GDPR in the United States. California, a monstrously large state. So if you want to do business in California, which we pretty much all do, you will be dealing with GDPR. You will be dealing with CCPA. And what it exists to protect the privacy rights of citizens. So how do you know if your business has to meet CCPA? Sorry, GDPR on the brain. First, and these are ORs, if your annual gross revenue is above 25 million, then you need to adhere to CCPA. If you possess personal information for 50,000 or more consumers, households, or devices, then you also have to adhere to this. Or if more than half of your annual revenue comes from selling consumers' personal information. And the fines of this are significant. They are not as significant as GDPR, I will tell you that. The fines are applied per violation, and the maximum fine is $7,500 per violation. But here's the trick. There's no cap. So there's a cap on the fine, but there's not a cap on the number of violations. So if you had a breach of 10 million customers, you could be charged as much as $7,500 for each one of those 10 million breaches. They have not done this yet, but the capability exists within the law. And this is one that, between this and GDPR, I don't think we have a client partner who is not concerned about these and looking to address them within their data governance program. Besides these two laws, I won't go into more detail, but we have Nevada's data breach notification law, Chapter 603A, and Oregon's Consumer Identity Theft Protection Act. I'm sure all of us are aware of these as well, plus many more coming. So these regulations are driving data governance programs. I can share with you, when I built data governance programs 10 years ago, maybe 20 to 30% of client partners had an interest in regulatory matters. Now, I don't work at all of our client partners, but at least the ones I've been at over the last 5 years, all of them had a significant regulatory component. All right, let me speed it up.
Mm-hmm.
Analytics. Yeah, did you hear Anne-Marie gave me the school marm? Mm-hmm. Speed it up. All right, let me do it. And most organizations have a real need for advanced analytics, big data, and data science, and this need is driving data governance. Absolutely it is. Because so let me go over these quickly for you. So data science, when we hear that term, it's an interdisciplinary field that uses applied statistics, machine learning, artificial intelligence, scientific methods, processes, and algorithms to extract knowledge and insights from structured, semi-structured, and unstructured data. We used to call this statistics back in the day, but now data science has taken it certainly to a new level. And part of this group, data science, big data, advanced analytics, is the big data end. When we hear the term big data, all it means is that we have an accumulation of data that's too large to be processed by traditional database management tools. So I'll give you an example, and I'll share this story. We had a company approach us once, and in their RFP, their request for proposal, they said, we want to build a big data warehouse. Now, we knew their size. They were a smaller organization, but very well known. We knew they had maybe 1 or 2 terabytes of data in the entire organization. And their core systems oh gosh, I'm trying to remember. Oh, their core systems were on a very old arcane database platform known as Progress. If you know what Progress is, you have just dated yourself in our industry. So anyway, they had their core data on that old system. So, and then they want to jump to Hadoop. That's mission impossible. They would have failed. So in our response, we said, well, Hadoop is really great when you're over a petabyte of data. Again, knowing that maybe 1 terabyte. And I said, well, if you really have a lot less data, you really should be going with like SQL Server or Oracle. It's much more stable, or DB2. So anyway, big data really should be used for processing petabytes of data. And we do that for analytical decision making. So let me continue. When we look at big data, there are the 5 V's of big data. For those of us who've been in database technology a long time, little secret, we use these 5 V's in database technology too, but don't tell anybody. So I'll go over them quickly because I want to keep moving. I know I have a lot to go over. Variety, all this refers to is the different types of data we may have in our systems, whether structured, semi-structured, or unstructured. Veracity is the data reliable, and do you trust it? Value refers to what's the positive business impact that our data has, and it should be significant. Velocity, what's the speed in which data is coming at us and the changes that are happening to it. And then volume is simple. How much data are we talking about? And when we look at big data, it's always looking at these 5 V's. Let me continue. All right. Data science and big data look to enable advanced analytics. And advanced analytics are just a part of data science. That's all they are. And they look to project future events and behaviors. And there are 6 major types I want to walk through with you. Advanced analytics, the 6 will be prescriptive, diagnostic, descriptive, predictive, cognitive, and automated. So let me go through them. So number 1, prescriptive. Prescriptive analytics presents what actions should be taken in a current business situation. When we look at diagnostic analytics, that looks at past data to determine what happened and why it happened. So diagnostic, we're looking at the past. Descriptive analytics. Descriptive is talking to us and focuses on what is happening today within our business. Predictive analytics. Think of we used to call this forecasting. We're trying to project what is going to happen in the future. That's what that tries to do. Cognitive analytics looks to mimic human behavior by drawing inferences from data in a recursive manner. Here's your artificial intelligence. And for those of you who attended our webinar a few months back where I spoke about artificial intelligence and machine learning, go back and watch it. All of these are streamed live on YouTube. They're all sitting in our channel. Go watch it. Because in there, I would like to think I argued successfully that true artificial intelligence doesn't really exist. Machines do a lousy job of mimicking human behavior. However, machine learning, guided, supervised with labeled data sets and historical data, that works very well. And that's what a lot of people are doing in their cognitive analytics. And where you really see machine learning, supervised machine learning being used is in automated analytics, where we're actually looking to automate business decisions. For example, if I validate and type in all your data, I should know if I can approve you for a credit card and for how much, if I should approve you for a loan, or some of these other decisions that in the past would take a human being a period of time to research and come up with a decision. So these are the 6 major types of analytics. Before I come off this, some of you are saying, Wow, David, that was very interesting. I hope you're saying that was interesting. You walked me through the major advanced analytics. You spoke about big data and data science. I thought we were talking about data governance return on investment. We are. If you don't understand your data and it's not governed correctly, you can't do any of this stuff. All of your algorithms in data science will fail when you shove bad data into them. All the analytics I'm showing on this slide fail when the data is wrong, when you don't even know what they mean. Most companies, when you work with them, struggle with very simple concepts like who's defined customer? What does that mean? Define product. These very simple terms. Imagine going after things like customer profitability or customer rating systems, much more complex. Without great data governance, you don't get a working data science department. We have a prospective client partner today. The whole group we are interacting with is the data science team. The people who are going to lead data governance will be data science because there's nobody else in the organization, and they're sick of struggling and battling with their data, having all their wonderful algorithms, all their wonderful formulas fail because the data they're putting into them is incorrect. All right, let's talk about, and I'll hit this topic and then I will open the floor up for questions from everyone. The data governance program charter. Let me walk you through this. So when you're building a data governance program, you have to have a good charter. A documented charter memorializes the business purposes of the data governance program. The charter states the business purpose that necessitated the data governance formation. Good charters target specific concerns. They should always be talking about increasing revenues, decreasing costs, risk management, business objectives. And I'm going to give you actually a whole framework for coming up with compelling business cases for your data governance program. So first off, when you're writing your charter, it's a best practice. And I always push our consultants, make your charter fit on one page, single spaced. Anything else is too long, because your charter is really an elevator pitch. So some of you may be familiar with the term elevator speech, but for those who are not, let me explain it. Let's suppose you needed to speak to an executive in your company. And every time you went to talk to her, she was always busy. You go to her secretary, the secretary says, oh, she's not in today. Well, you just saw her walk by. So you know it's going to be hard to get a meeting. You're going to work the next day and she's in the same elevator as you. How long do you have to talk to her? Well, it takes about 90 seconds to get to your next floor. So you have 90 seconds to give the pitch on why we need data governance within our organization. A program charter is a 90-second elevator pitch where you're going to go through and briefly and get to the point, why do we need data governance? Let me help you in defining some really good rules for your charter. So first off, remember, even though it's only 90 seconds, you're telling a story. Good stories have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Don't just jump to the end. Start at the beginning, have a middle, and have an end. You can fit all this in 90 seconds. Your charters need to be compelling and interesting. Make sure the verbiage moves. And do not, it's a pet peeve, do not talk above the reader. Don't use big words to try to impress people with your vocabulary, because it's only going to weigh them down. As somebody who has sometimes edited different things, this drives me nuts, because it really it's poor communication. And a great charter will move the emotions of the reader. So let me give you what I like to call my program charter pyramid. Here are the things you can look at for identifying compelling business requirements. Number one, and let me check my time here. Okay, 15 minutes, I can do this. So when and still have time for questions. When you're defining your business requirements, every organization, whether it's a company or a federal agency, everyone has major objectives that are listed on your intranet or even externally. Leverage these. There's always 1 to 5 of them that come right from the CEO or your director, whatever the case may be. Leverage these within your charter. I'll give you an example. Massive insurance company, you can argue they're the largest in the world. They have a goal in 4 years, they want to double their revenues. Guess what? There's only 4 ways you can double revenues. Either you can buy the revenue, meaning purchase other companies. You could do that, very expensive way to do it. Or you're down to 3 organic ways. So if you're not going to buy them, you only have 3 organic ways. 1, you can charge more for whatever it is you're selling. How's that going to work in insurance? Terrible, because you will lose your customers. So you can't really charge more. Can you sell more of something to someone? Well, not really. So if I have a car and I buy an auto insurance policy, can you really convince me to buy a second? Probably not. I may have been born in the dark, but I wasn't born yesterday. So no, I will not buy a second policy. That leaves you with the last one. Can I sell you something else that I haven't sold you before? So if I'm purchasing a car insurance policy and an auto insurance, can you sell me life insurance, business insurance? I happen to own a business, general liability, errors and omissions, cross-sell. That's the key. So cross-sell and 360-degree view of customer are critical. So you're saying, wait a minute, David, what the heck does doubling our revenues have to do with data governance? Well, if the only way you can grow revenue organically is to cross-sell, then you better have a 360-degree view of customer. If you don't know even what the heck a customer is, then you're not going to get a 360-degree view of customer. And this is where data governance was seminal in that company in achieving the goals that they want. They need to have that so they can actually do cross-selling. All right, enough on the objectives. Let me go to next. Look for specific pain points. Look for actual things that happen in your company, fines you've experienced, lawsuits. We had one company, a client partner, pharmaceutical, where quite literally the CEO was on the front page of the Wall Street Journal in handcuffs, being perp walk out the door, being fit for a very nice orange jumpsuit. So those kind of stories are very motivating. You will get executive buy-in if you can keep them out of jail. Funny how that works. Anyway, so looking for those specific pain points, things which actually have happened. I could give you a lot more examples. Let me keep going. Coattailing. Data governance professionals hate this one, but it works. Sometimes there are hot projects within your organization. Maybe hundreds of millions of dollars are going into an SAP implementation. Maybe hundreds of millions of dollars are going into a data lake or an AI. We already have shared, without good governance, these won't work. If you can coattail on there and get 1-2% of that budget, here's your data governance program. Decreasing costs. I've already hit this. Reducing our redundant data, reducing our redundant processes, regulatory adherence, like the GDPRs, like the CCPAs, like the AMLs, like the KYCs, all critical. Then increasing revenues. That's got 360-degree view of customer, that market basket analysis. Last but not least on my pyramid, I've ran you through quite a bit. This is pretty fast. Be creative. Don't be afraid to think outside of the box. Anytime I think I have figured out every way to validate a data governance program, tomorrow happens and I discover another one. There's always something new. So don't hesitate. So this is just a little bit of a sample of what some verbiage you may want to include in your charter. This is a healthcare insurance example. So I just put this in here so you could kind of see a little bit of the artifact. Okay, let me tie this up. And Anne-Marie, we're going to take some questions. I know you have a bunch. So let me give you the final analysis.
In 5 minutes.
I do not hear you. All right, data governance is required to meet the requirements of these government regulations. And really, we have to reduce our IT footprint. They're too complex, they're too out of control, and great data governance has to happen to achieve that. Big data, data science, and advanced analytics are here to stay, and they should be. They're difference makers. But with bad data, none of them work. So we got to get that right. Your data governance charter should fit on one page and be your elevator speech. Utilize my pyramid for defining your business cases. Use that as your guidepost when you're defining ROI. Do all this, you will achieve amazing results. Anne-Marie, hit me with those questions.
Okay, I think we have time for one, maybe two questions.
Okay.
Question number one is, what is the relationship between data governance and library and information science?
Wow, what a fantastic question. So I could see why you said maybe we'll get to one. So library and information science is really something that is focused on the cataloging and the work with different books and the management of those documents, periodicals, research, really big into scientific organizations. The person who asked that, you're probably very familiar with the Dublin Core Standard, highly valuable in library management. I think a good library management administrator can learn a lot from data governance, can use many of our techniques in your organization.
Mm-hmm.
So there's definitely a tie between the two, but yours is a little bit more complex.
Many times data governance is a bottleneck to innovation in organizations with branches that want to drive independent development.
Yep.
How do you handle that?
The sensational question. The gentleman saying, hey, it can become a bottleneck. When it's implemented incorrectly, you darn right it can. And we have seen this all the time. One of my golden rules. So take a step back. Data governance programs oftentimes will implement different policies and standards and rules. And they will do it in a vacuum, shove them out to the people using them, and then they'll be shocked when they become a bottleneck. You don't want to do it that way. Golden rule. If you're going to create standards, policies, or rules in your governance program, the people who are going to have to follow them need to be the ones creating them. That way, we know we're not impacting them. When you build data governance correctly, you will enable that research and development team. You will enable this new line of business. You will help them be faster, better, and more accurate. But when you do it wrong, it's going to have problems. And one of the challenges we have in our industry is there's a lot of people who are very new, who really don't have this background trying to do data governance. And we have to deal with that sometimes, where you look at them and say, gosh, you just missed the basics. That's why we're doing this webinar series, is to try to make sure that people start implementing using the basics correctly.
I have time for one more question, and so it'll have to be a quick answer.
My specialty.
Yes. What do you suggest as the most crucial argument to convince management to adopt a data governance program?
Great question. So, of course, I would want to tailor this to the company, but if I'm just doing it in general, can you operate this business successfully with bad data, with data you do not understand? Because your competitors are trying to make changes. And to me, that's where I would go into, is if our data is wrong, if it's incorrect, we are going to make bad decisions. We are going to get fined, and we're going to continue to struggle. When I go into companies so if I'm looking at a consumer type organization, invariably, when you follow the chain, we're screwing up right in front of our customers. The customers are going to see and experience the damage from us. So if I were to look at one thing, I would really target our corporate objectives, the top of the pyramid, and look to make my argument right into there and show how having bad data prevents us from doing any of the things that you really want to do.
Okay.
Anne-Marie, should I stop sharing so do you have something to share? Or?
Yes, I do. I have a few things to finish sharing.
And may I, I'll let Anne Marie go.
That's okay. Go ahead, David. Tell me what you want to say.
Well, I can't wait for our next, well, I want to basically steal everything you're about to say. So we got a lot, Anne Marie, we got a lot of feedback saying, wow, from people who've been really enjoying this mastery series, but they said, ooh, we need a basics course. Just give us the basics of data governance. And we're doing that. Next month, we're going to switch roles. Anne Marie will be the presenter, and I will be the host, terrorizing her with questions. You will want to come back next month just to watch how I make her life miserable by asking her every single tough question you folks give me. But go ahead, Anne Marie. I can't wait. It'll be a lot of fun.
Actually, that's the next slide. And you knew that, and that's why you stole my thunder. But taking the thunder back, for all the people who have asked us, what are you talking about when you talk about data governance? What's the basic? What's the definition? Why should I do this? How is this important to an organization? How do I convince an organization to actually listen to me? We will start to address those questions and those topics on Thursday, July 23rd at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in the US. Check the world clock for what time that corresponds to where you are. We welcome comments, questions, of course. And as David said, he will terrorize me with all the questions that you pose, as I will be your presenter for that next session. In conclusion, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for your attendance today. EWSolutions, I'd also like to thank them for their sponsorship of this webinar series. As we stated at the top of the webinar recording and slides are available online at datamanagementu.com, the section under webinars. You will receive a link to this shortly if you registered to attend. If you registered to attend this session and you stayed for the entire session, you will receive a certificate awarding you 1 professional development unit. You'll get this certificate in about a week or so. So if you don't get it tomorrow morning, don't get worried. For those of you who are data management professionals, I strongly urge you to study for the Certified Data Management Professional designation. David and I both hold it at the master level, and it has been invaluable in our careers. The online course is available at damacdmp.com. And once and for all, I'd like to thank everyone for being a registered subscriber to datamanagementu.com's newsletter. If you are not a subscriber yet and would like to become one, please visit datamanagementu.com and fill in the subscriber box.
It's free. How do you be free, Anne Marie?
David, it is free. And you'll have announcements well in advance of all our events, webinars. You'll see hundreds of articles there, podcasts, all sorts of activities that datamanagementu.com sponsors. And with that, it is now the top of the hour. Once more, I'd like to thank David for his continued insight and mastery of this topic. And I'd like to thank all of you for joining me today. Have a wonderful rest of the day, and we hope to see you next month right here at datamanagementu.com. Thank you.
Take care, everybody.